The following video will walk you through how to create, submit, and edit a Request for Environmental Services (RES) form. The easiest location to find the link to the RES is in the Engineering Policy Guide, or EPG. Click on EPG 100 General, scroll to EPG 127.1 and click on Requests for Environmental Services. This section of the EPG gives an overview of the RES process. The link to the form is in the upper right-hand Forms box. The form initially opens and requires a login. If you have not created an account, follow the instructions linked at the top menu on how to do that. The link at the bottom will get you started to register in the system. There are two types of accounts, an administrator account and a representative account. There should only be one admin per company or municipality, and all of their team members are representatives. Once logged in, you can search or create a new request. If you search, you will only see RESs that are assigned to your own representative account. The admin cannot add projects to a representative account until after the representative creates the RES form. If the admin has their own projects, they will need to also create a representative account under their own admin account. The admin can add a project under more than one representative. To create an RES, log in as a representative and click on the Create New Request. The page that opens ties the RES to previous RESs. This helps populate the new RES with the information input by the creator and the specialist from the previous RES. Choose the RES stage, then enter the job number. Click Find Previous or Enter, and any previously submitted RESs for that job number should come up. If there are none, choose the radio button next to the None Found. If there are previous RESs, choose the previous stage that was submitted. Click Next Page. The blank parent RES form will open. At this point, you can save the form as a draft and come back to it later. There are no required fields to be filled out to save the RES as a draft. When filling out the RES, the project number should be the first box you fill in. Input the 6-digit job number without the J. If the job number has been programmed, it will auto-populate fields such as TMS description, county, letting date, etc. If not, you will need to fill out those fields as completely as possible. Refer to the instruction manual for specifics on each part of the form. In order to submit the form for review, the required fields on the parent page are project number, district, cumulative right-of-way, bike ped consideration, public involvement, and at least one location page form. Once a location is added, you must click on that location to go to the location page and add required information before the RES can be submitted for review. Once on the location form, click the Edit button at the top of the page. The required fields will be highlighted yellow. These are the minimum fields to be filled out to submit the request. The required fields are acres from all sources, right-of-way that may be needed, tree clearing, any federally owned land, coordination with locals, and FEMA-defined floodway. Additionally, an exhibit must be attached to the parent or location page of the RES before it can be submitted. Attachments can be dragged and dropped onto the Choose File button, and multiple can be dropped or attached at once for efficiency. Remember, plans attached to the RES do not have to be approved plan sets. A KNZ file showing location, project limits, tree clearing limits, etc. is most helpful to determine impacts. Fill the RES form out as completely as possible. There is an additional description box on the location page to add more details about the project and expand on the shorter TMS description. If there are other consultants or MoDOT staff that need to be notified about the project, put them in the additional contact boxes on the parent page. The date desired is automatically generated from the submit date to allow 30 days to review. If this timeline is shortened, it becomes an emergency review. Take caution in shortening the timeline unless absolutely necessary. The desired A date is related to when the right-of-way process can begin. The date chosen should be realistic in order to get through the environmental and cultural resource processes and is not a guarantee that clearance will be obtained by then. This is the desired time frame. Remember, to get an A date, NEPA must be approved. NEPA approval is only given if parks, 4F, 6F, cultural resources, noise, and threatened and endangered species resources are cleared. Logical termini and independent utility should always be answered yes. The district is required to document that each location of the project has 1. Independent utility, 2. Logical termini, and 3. Does not restrict consideration of alternatives for other reasonably foreseeable transportation improvements. The second red arrow points to changes to the project since last RES submittal. This is where you notify the specialist that there are changes in the project scope or impacts since the last RES submittal. If there is a change, say yes and provide an explanation. Cumulative right-of-way and easements of all locations. Provide the cumulative number of all easements and permanent right-of-way on the project. If there is more than one location page, this number should add all locations together. This number helps us determine if the project is over the 5-acre threshold and a CE2 must be written. Any public involvement planned or completed. Early in the project development, this may be very general, such as we plan to provide a public comment period, a public meeting, and typical social media messaging. Late in project development, all these events have occurred and the details must be provided, including date of the meeting, how many attended, etc. If the project is a CE2 NEPA class, those exhibits and documents for public involvement must be attached to the RES. Under the land disturbance stormwater section of the location page, identify if the location will include 1 acre or more land disturbance and determine if the activity is considered new development, redevelopment, or maintenance as defined on the form. If in doubt, contact the Stormwater Compliance Coordinator. If there was any coordination with local counties or cities, answer yes and provide a brief explanation. This helps MoDOT achieve stormwater permitting requirements to work with adjacent MS4 regulated entities. Remember to update this as the project progresses and new RESs are submitted. All other fields should be filled out as completely as possible. A CE2 level document is required if certain thresholds are achieved. For instance, if the project cumulatively impacts more than 5 acres or if there are any displacements. Under traffic impacts, if the yes box regarding detours greater than 25 miles rural or greater than 5 miles urban are checked, a CE2 level document is required. Please include any details on detours, including whether they include use of local roads or state roads only. Use FEMA's online National Flood Hazard Layer Mapping tool to determine if 100-year floodplain and/or regulatory floodway are within the project limits. Next, check the box if you determine there are areas of 100-year floodplain in the project limits. Then, indicate the flood zones in the project area, which could include any or all of the following. Zone A, 100-year floodplain, Zone AE, floodway fringe, which is treated as 100-year floodplain, and/or Zone AE, regulatory floodway. If you are uncertain, contact the MoDOT floodplain specialist for your district. If you determine there is FEMA-defined regulatory floodway within the project limits, choose Yes from the drop-down menu. Remember, regulatory floodway and floodway fringe are not the same. Floodway fringe is considered an area of 100-year floodplain, not regulatory floodway. If you select Yes for the project is in a FEMA-defined floodway, you must then select whether the work in the floodway will occur at, below, or above the base flood elevation. When 100-year floodplain and/or regulatory floodway are in the project limits, create FEMA Fermat maps on FEMA's website and attach them under project attachments. Next, check the box if you know whether the project area includes FEMA buyout parcels or properties. If the improvement is within 4 miles of an existing airport, the team must fill out the FAA Notice Criteria tool. Notice Criteria tool can be found at faa.gov, or districts can make an exempt determination based on the regulation. Districts have their own forms to document the exceptions. In the Known Concerns section of the location page, provide any details or local knowledge that you or the project team are aware of. There are certain resources, such as recreational areas, that are not always mapped and easy to find on a desktop review. At the top of the RES parent page, there is a checkbox for alternative delivery projects, such as design build. This box should always be checked for design build delivery projects. Once the form is saved and submitted for review, MoDOT staff will receive a generated email and have 30 days to review the submitted information and respond to the submitter and sponsor regarding any information still needed to complete the clearances. This example email is an RES where the date was shortened from 30 days to 15 days and therefore comes through as an emergency request. Once the RES review is completed, an email is generated back to the submitter, project manager, and designer. If it is a right-of-way request, the right-of-way managers will also be copied. Once an RES is received, a best management practice is to review all commitments on the parent page and open the location page to review district actions. This will immediately tell you what, if anything, needs to be provided for specialists to clear the resource. There are 4 RES stages to mirror the 4 project development stages. These are location conceptual, preliminary plans, right-of-way, and final design. Submit the location conceptual RES when the project is placed in scoping. A larger area than needed can be provided for an initial review. At this time, right of entry letters should be sent out to accommodate required field work at the next stage of design, which is preliminary plans. Most permitting and fieldwork begins at preliminary plans. Therefore, if right-of-way or easements are required, property owner permissions are also needed at this stage. The right-of-way stage RES is only required if there are new right-of-way or easements. This milestone is necessary to provide NEPA approval to request an A-date. Submit the final design RES no later than 60 days prior to PS&E. This allows for any last-minute clearances before permits are due by PS&E. Remember, if there is right-of-way, enter a desired A-date to provide a target clearance date. More process specifics can be found in EPG 127.1. For more information, see the YouTube guides to completing the RES. Navigate to @MoDOT Design Training 123.